This council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that you're present at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside Australia.
Good evening. The Council acknowledges that we're meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations people who are present with us today. The Council acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site for Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's plan in heritage. We pray for wisdom, courage, empathy, understanding and guidance in the decisions that we make, whilst seeking and respecting the opinions of others. May we in this meeting speak honestly, listen attentively, think clearly and decide wisely for the good governance of the City of Adelaide and the well-being of those we serve. I ask all those present to stand in silence in memory of those who gave their lives in defence of their country at sea, on land and in the air. Thank you, members. Please be seated. I'll note the apologies on leave from Councillor Marting and an apology from Councillor Lee. I notice that there are some other absences, but they may attend shortly. Could I ask someone to move the confirmation of minutes from the meeting on the 12th of December? Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Ho. All those in favour? All those against? Can we take that again? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. I'd ask you to note some items on the agenda and ask you to consider if there are any conflicts of interest. If not, we will move on. This evening, I'd like to note that Mr. Glenn Woodward gave notice, and that's in our council agenda, that he would like to speak to us this evening. Glenn, as you know, has been a stalwart of the City of Adelaide. He's well known as a former teacher with an interest in history and an extraordinary knowledge of the City of Adelaide. Glenn has been, I think, our longest-serving volunteer in the Town Hall. Thank you, Glenn. Would you like to come and speak to us for 5 minutes? I understand also you've given us a copy of your speech. Thank you.
Yes. Recently, I took a group of 30 members of the Commonwealth Society on a tour of Adelaide Town Hall. This was my last tour after 32 years of acting as a volunteer tour guide. In 1992, I worked with the Lord Mayor then, Steve Condis, and we established the idea of having volunteers taking tours around the town hall and caressing the culture of our lovely city. During the years, I've benefited from the opportunity to research and tell the stories of the City of Adelaide. the culture to thousands of visitors, students, migrants. They've come from all sorts of places to the benefit of me. I've gained from them by telling them the story of our city. Even the Duke of Kent I brought in here and led the way above the mayor. I've had success in my talents and my research, and also with the help always of the council staff. The tours cover the architecture of the town hall and the development of the town acre. We fit in stories of Queen Adelaide, Colonel Light, John McDowell Stewart and Edmund Wright, together with the stories. Even in the council chamber, I've taken tours around here and given the facts behind the faces of some of the notables on the wall. I've also taken these stories out into the community, to groups like Probus, Rotary, church groups, ethnic groups, all sorts of groups, both day and night and in the suburbs and the country. So I've taken them wider than just the city square. Now I've donated all of my research to the council files for the use of future guides. I've even had a collection I collected in Meiningen, Germany, the home of Adelaide. I've appreciated my long association, and I've worked with 8 Lord Mayors. Top that. Lord Mayor Sandy Verschure presented me with a glass plaque for my years of service, which I display sometimes, if it fits. Future, I've fortunately found a volunteer who is willing to take my place and have access to the files. Farewell.
Thank you. I think we've accepted your speech with commendation. Could I just ask for one technical move? Could I ask a member of council to move that the notes for the speech be added to our minutes? Moved by Councillor Kouros, seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Now, before you go, Glenn, I wonder if you could just wait for a moment. This is a little unconventional. I'm not usually allowed out of the seat.
Well, we've got the bar across here.
Can I just give you a small gift on behalf of the City Council and thank you for your extraordinary dedication and your service to our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I've enjoyed working in here.
Well, I apologise. I'm not sure I'm allowed out of the seat. Can I move now on to the rest of the agenda? The item 10 is there have been no petitions. Item 11, there are 3 items. 11.1, firstly. Could I ask for a mover? Thank you, Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Siebentrit. This is to note our Capital Works programme, which is, I think, incredibly exciting because we're actually spending the money we've allocated, and it's a very large sum this year. Is there any comment on that? Councillor Siebentrit?
Echo the excitement about the progress. I did have a question for the administration, Lord Mayor, just in regard to whether we see any procurement cost issues arising as we're going through. So it's wonderful to see the progress, but we know that we're in an inflationary period. Are we having any procurement issues around getting the work done?
Through the Acting CEO.
Through the Lord Mayor, Mr. McCready.
Thank you, CEO. Yes, we do, but how we're managing that, Councillor, is through effectively more stringent procurement activities, getting the best bang for buck in regards to our projects. And the other thing is we're managing that through certain projects are actually more favourable than others in regards to savings, so we're able to balance that out. But what we have found is the market in regards to materiality and resources has not returned to normal and is not returning. I think what we're seeing is that the market is probably holding those prices. It's advantageous for them to do so, but we would hope that it will come back. But yes, there is still cost pressures there, but we're managing them very closely.
Only just to say, echo exactly what you said. Great work to the administration. It's their hard work and dedication to ensuring that everything's been delivered and delivered on time is very much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor. If there is no contrary view and the mover doesn't wish to speak, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I'm sorry. Yes, we did Councillor Elliott and Councillor Stephen-Tritt. Isn't that true? Oh, some of us are on the ball. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. I don't usually... Thank you. I'm impressed. We'll move on to item 11.2, which is our funding for development. So can I have a mover? Councillor Giles, and a seconder? No. Is this going to lapse through want of a seconder?
I think we've got a...
Councillor Ho has seconded it. Is there any debate on this?
Have you got...
An amendment from... Can I just check, this is not a direct negative, is it? Sorry, I can't see it. Can we scroll it down a bit?
Sorry, I just have to get the next one. It's changed since...
Sorry?
It's changed since we had that, so we just received...
Okay, I'm sorry.
Lord Mayor, I'm happy to second this, but could I request that we take it in parts?
I'm happy to take it in parts if the mover is.
Yes, I am.
Can I just read it to make sure?
Yep.
So the amendment is actually to replace 1 and replaces 2. Sorry, I'm just trying to... We're approving the payment to Councillor Davis and the rest of the items. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry about that.
Through the Lord Mayor, if 1 and 2 go through, number 6, we go through that.
Yes, I think we have to delete 6. Is that true? I
Yes.
think that's...
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure we get it. And I don't think that's a direct negative, is it? Okay. So we'll take an amendment then, I'm sorry, which came from, moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor, and we're going to take it in parts. Sorry, would you like to speak to your...
Yes, I would. Look, when I actually looked at this report, I didn't feel that it actually met our needs. I'm quite aware of the governance essentials for local government that the AICD actually provide. I was the State Manager of AICD. I actually had some queries on this because I actually believe that we will be duplicating what we did in our mandatory training last year. And so after investigating and talking to the Local Government Association as well, because they've run quite a lot of really good courses as well, I would like to see this report come back to Council and I'd like to look at what the training that we did last year, taking into consideration also the mandatory training that we actually have to do between May and December this year. So I think by just actually agreeing to doing the Government Essentials for Local Government, it's a very expensive course. I think that we could actually even save money here on looking at this, what other training is out there, taking into consideration what we already have done. So I would definitely not support actually going down this track of doing this Governance Essentials for Local Government through the AICD. I also think AICD are a fantastic organisation who actually are great with governance when it comes to boards. The company directors course, when it comes to some parts of that, is not applicable to this council. This particular course itself is actually quite more aligned to local government, but at the end of the day, I think that, like I said, we've already done so much of this, and I think it would be a total waste of money to actually not investigate this further, not unpack it further, not look at what we need to do, look at what we actually have done, maybe identify some extra areas that we could do with some training and come back and develop a better program for what we actually need.
Can I just say that that report would include an assessment of the financial training, because that's probably the most exciting bit of the AICD course, I think. I hate to say it. That will be part of that report.
Lord Mayor, before we go on with any further discussion, can I just declare that I do have probably say a general or a material conflict of interest, given that I am a member of the AICD.
That's a general conflict because everybody's a member, aren't they? I think that most of us are members.
It's a significant class.
It's a class. You are one of a class. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So given that that is the case, I'll feel more comfortable vacating the chamber before we get to a decision.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a question for clarification, because my reading of the new Part 1 and 2 seems to be a significant departure of the intent of the original motion. I'm just wondering if this is a valid amendment that doesn't...
I was concerned that it was a direct negative, but...
Because it is asking for a report, which is not the same as approving the expenditure that's captured in the motion.
It's a deferral. Actually, this is really deferring. Can I ask advice?
Through the presiding member, the observation that the revised amended motion is a deferral of what was proposed in the original is correct. A deferral doesn't constitute a direct negative. It's not rejecting the option, it's asking for further information.
Thank you for clarifying.
Can I just add that I did run this past Governance Manager for their input before I put this forward. Yes.
In that case, Councillor
Just had two questions. First one was, is there indeed a general conflict of interest? Because I suspect there's a number of us who may also need to leave, given Councillor Abrahimzadeh has. I'm also a member of the AICD. Like some clarification
my
on
sense
that.
is that I speak for myself. If I regarded myself as a member of the AICD, I'd have no beneficial interest. You pay them to be a member.
Yes.
And it's of no benefit to you whatsoever, however many people register. That's my personal non-lawyer's view. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because I'm in a similar position. Also, just curious in relation to Part 4 and 5, with I'm all for supporting professional development. Is that the dialogue program there in relation to local government? I don't believe it is specifically about local government, but I believe that the administration thought that it was in the wider sense to do with leadership and was loosely applicable to our process. Councillor Kouros.
So I can clarify, do I sit down or stand up? Under the standing orders, do we stand up when we speak, or because?
It is normal to stand.
Okay. I'm just a little bit. I just would like some answers to some questions because I'm a little bit confused. I understand that this was brought into council because it was a request from some councillors to do the AICD course. Is that correct?
My understanding was that the previous council had supported members to do AICD courses, and several members of this chamber did undertake the course.
So usually,
I have encouraged other current members to take the course as well. I particularly found the financials rewarding.
Yeah,
I understand that there is a tailored course that would be cheaper to undertake if everyone took it, and it would be put on for us.
Okay.
It was. I believe there are 4 members of council who would like to undertake this course. Again, they would be one of a part of a class.
Okay, so isn't it usual practice that a councillor can put in a request because there's a discretionary fund of amount of training over a certain period of time, and it's up to the CEO to make that request valid? Why is it coming through chamber?
There is a change in the budget that's been requested to cover the costs, and there is something specific about Councillor Davis being accepted into a program overseas. It's perhaps unusual.
But he's paying for his own airfare and accommodation. It's just the course itself that he's requesting.
It's a request for funding.
For the course, not for airfare, not for accommodation, not for any of that, right?
It is for a course. Right.
So what is the budget allocation request for each councillor for training over the 4-year term? How much can a councillor ask for? What's the allocation?
He is asking for 4,500, which is within the amount that is allocated.
From my understanding, Lord Mayor, last term, over the 4 years, there was the allocation for $10,000 for each councillor to spend on training and development, and it was the CEO's discretion on whether that money can be given to them or not.
I don't believe there is a $10,000 limit anymore. May I ask the CEO, acting CEO?
Through the presiding member, the current council member training and development policy is provided as a link to this report. It does provide for the consideration of requests under a $5,000 limit under delegation. I don't believe the policy talks to a quantum available over the life of the term, so I think that's a shortfall.
But for Councillor Davis, though, this didn't need to come through council.
I can address that through the Lord Mayor, if you wish.
Please do.
So I'd point the council to paragraph 25 of the report, which outlines the rationale for bringing this matter to council rather than being approved under delegation. And the key point is we were looking at 2 requests for training by Councillor Davis. One, the Youth Leadership Development Program, and secondly, a supplementary AICD course. The quantum to attend and provide for both of those exceeded the $5,000 limit in the policy.
So then the 4 councillors that are requesting to do the AICD course, do they have a conflict? Should they not be voting on this because then they have an interest?
That's not the matter before the...
It's the policy, not the... Councillor Davis has a conflict, clearly, if he were here, which he's not, but the others are just prescribing the policy.
But so 4 councillors have requested to do this course.
Originally, but the recommendation is for a course for everybody, and therefore we are all part of a class.
All right.
I think that's the questions answered. I'd be happy to, unless there are any more questions here, Deputy Lord Mayor.
If I wanted to speak on the motion, do I wait until forgive me, we've only just done training on this. Do I wait until after we've dealt with the amendment first and then speak on the amendment proper, the motion proper, or is now my opportunity to speak?
I think that you can speak if you want to now, and roll it all into one discussion. I don't know quite whether you're going to speak for or against it.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm happy, and the reason why I asked to vote in parts, I'm happy to support part 1 and 2. I do struggle with parts 3 and 4, though, and you know, I genuinely commend Councillor Davis and his search for professional growth. However, I struggle to reconcile his request for additional funding for training, $4,500 worth, with his ongoing attacks on our improved committee structure and the independently set remuneration of our hard-working committee chairs, many of whom spend hours preparing for the meetings. I think our ratepayers would struggle or would have concerns, I should say, with a perception of an elected member. And I say a perception only, I'm not making accusations, but the perception of an elected member gallivanting around the United States when missing additional committee meetings and council meetings. And, you know, I am sorry to say this, but I just don't think it quite passes the pub test. If a councillor wants to embark on professional growth, I certainly suggest he starts much closer to home, perhaps in South Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Are there any other alternate views? If not, I will take the matters in parts. Would you like to sum up?
I just wanted to talk to my Amendment 2, because I've spoken to my Amendment 1. My Amendment 2 was very much about, I asked similar questions that Councillor Kouros did tonight to our governance manager, and she agreed that the actual policy is really vague and needs reviewing. And there is a whole, you know, it puts in doubt just exactly what our entitlements are and how we can request them, etc. So hence that's why my amendment to 2, because which really means that 3 and 4 is put in doubt because 2 is because the policy is very vague and it has gaps and it needs review and it needs redoing. So apart from that, I would like to see the report come back. I would like to see us identify exactly the type of group training that we actually need, taking into consideration what we've already done, what we actually have to do this year, and then to identify any other areas that we need. And there are the local government association providers, there's other training providers that could actually, that are more linked closely to the local government sector than perhaps the AICD, that we could get quotes from, because I guarantee that we would probably be able to save money based on that quote that we have in front of us. Thank you.
So, thank you. Having summed up, we'll take parts 1, 2 and 3 as amended together.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, are we voting on the substantive motion or the amendment?
The amendment.
Thank you.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, so parts 1 and 2, and then
Okay, we'll do parts 1 and 2 together. So, all those in favour of 1 and 2 together? Against? That's carried. Part 3, which is now deleted, I move that as well? All those in favour? I'm sorry? We're deleting part 3. All in favour? Against? That's carried. We're deleting part 4. Sorry, it would be part. I'm sorry. What is the number of the one at the bottom? 5. We're deleting part 5. I apologise. It's part 6. I'm sorry. We're deleting part 6. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Now that becomes the motion, and we'll again take it in parts because I understand people would like that. Can we now? That becomes the motion. I'm sorry, if you're going to speak, Councillor Ho, can you switch your microphone on? Sorry, Councillor Ho, did you wish to speak? Yes. Councillor Kouros, would you like to speak? Thank you.
I'm glad that we've clarified bringing in the report. Actually agree with that. I'm glad we've clarified to review the policy. Actually fantastic. I think it's a little bit sad that Councillor Davis is not here to be able to defend his reasons to why he could be on this program. I understand that he's on a holiday at the moment. He's not in the country. So for him to not have, I would like to understand more about that. I believe he's paying for his own airfare and his own accommodation. I'd like to have more understanding of it. I'm supportive of people doing extra courses in order to support their role. I'm not condemning him for that. I think more people should be doing courses to understand their role and understanding governance and understanding their job as a councillor and in leadership roles. But I think in the policy itself, if Councillor Davis was able to submit this to the CEO and not come before us in council, it wouldn't be debated and it would have been on the discretion of the CEO. So it's unfortunate that it's come to that, but I am supportive of the whole of the motion as it is.
Thank you. I'll ask Councillor Giles to speak to her motion, but also bring back Councillor Abrahimzadeh, because now the amendments have removed the mention of the AICD, so it's become a generic motion. Councillor Giles, would you like to speak to the motion as amended?
No, I reserve my right.
Sorry?
I reserve my right to...
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll speak very briefly. I do think it's a fantastic thing that there are training opportunities for council members and a mechanism through which we can do that. But I do think there is something rather galling about someone who hasn't apologised to attend a meeting because they're overseas, asking for a large sum of ratepayer money to go back overseas and not be present representing their ward or their constituents yet again. I will reflect on a bit of a track record of not apologising, not turning up to committee meetings, not to council meetings, turning up frequently late to council meetings.
Sorry,
no, I'm still speaking, unless you have a point of order.
I have a point of clarification, Lord Mayor.
There's no points of clarification of what I've said.
Are we assessing Councillor Davis's behaviour, or are we assessing the right to give him the money?
Councillor, we're not assessing anything. Please don't interrupt. Councillor Elliott, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Probably a prudent time to finish anyway. I think I've demonstrated that I'm not comfortable supporting point 3 and 4 for this, given that it would be a misuse, I think, of ratepayer money to send someone away who has a poor track record of actually turning up for their job in this chamber.
Thank you. Unless there's another point of discussion, Councillor, would you like to sum up? Councillor Giles?
I need to say that I'm pleased that we're going to have a clear look at this process of professional development, and I totally support as much professional development as you can for roles like this, and it comes in all sorts of forms. I don't know what I think about Councillor Davis asking for $4,500 to go to a conference. I don't know anything about the Young Leadership Dialogue program. I hope it's not some sort of politically connected program that will assist him in his bid for the seat of Mayo. But I don't have a problem with him accessing this if it will assist him in his professional involvement in the council.
Thank you. We'll now take it in parts. We'll take part 1 first of all. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimous. Part 2? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Part 3? Are those against? That division's been called. All those in favour of part 3? Could you stand?
Members, please stand until your name has been called. Division has been called on part 3. Councillor Ho, Councillor Kouros, Councillor Siebentroop, Councillor Giles and Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Thank you.
Could I then ask you if you'd like to note part 4, which is a harmless motion, I'm sure. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. We'll move on to the next item. Thank you. This relates to a need to select council members. I think as a starting point we might take this in parts. Would someone move part 1 to note that we are going to select members? Moved by Councillor Abrahimzadeh, seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, members. I'd now like to call for nominations to represent the council. Councillor Noon.
I'd like to put forward Councillor Giles.
Councillor Giles, did you say? Yes, thank you. Any other nominations? If not, Giles? Now, I think that we have to declare an interest here. This is technically requires another decision. Could I just ask from the chair whether Councillor Giles would like to be a virtual or a real attendee?
I would prefer to be a real attendee. It was very useful last time because the federal government is now actively engaged with the local government association, and it means that there's opportunities to lobby federal members of parliament.
An excellent view. So could I ask that we amend part 4 to be approves the delegate to travel and attend in person, to delete that, and that should be number 4. Thank you. And could I ask if there are any nominees for proxy? Deputy Lord Mayor.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Carmel Noon.
So Councillor Noon would be appointed as the proxy, and you will be happy to travel in person should you be required. Thank you. Could we add in? So now we're going to move to moving part 2, but ask Councillor Giles if she would declare an interest and leave the room. Thank you. We'll appoint Councillor Giles, moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Ho. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Could we now ask Councillor, thank you, and ask Councillor Noon to leave, and moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Siebentritt. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. And now thank you. And now the final element is to approve the delegate to travel and attend in person. Does that have to? That actually is technically. I'm sorry, Councillor Giles. I've messed up the flow there. I apologise. I lost the thread. All those in part 4, moved by Councillor New, seconded by Councillor Ho. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. I apologise for tripping over that little element. Could we ask Councillor Giles to come back? Thank you. We'll move on to the next item. So I would just thank members for returning full of energy and enthusiasm after the break at Christmas. It's been a remarkably busy time. The first year we achieved an extraordinary amount in terms of strategic planning and new policy development. We've caught up on our CLMPs. Our Adelaide Parklands Management Strategy is about to be released, as is our economic strategy. Many of you attended the Economic Development Roundtable before Christmas. Again, I thank all those members for attending the New Year's Eve Elder Park Party, which was extraordinarily successful, as was the civic event for Veal's Vision upstairs. If you haven't attended that exhibition, I recommend it. It's really splendid. We had our first citizenship ceremony of the year with 44 conferees. The event was held on the day before Australia Day, and it was a truly joyous occasion with a considerable amount of what I felt was youthful enthusiasm, But that is, of course, because there's an average age of our conferees of 31, which is a decade younger than the average age in the state and marks our city as a youthful one in any case. We had conferees from India, Malaysia, the Philippines, the Middle East, Southeast Asia. It was an extraordinary event, and I thank all those members for attending, but particularly mention the award given to Youth Options. Many of you have seen the Verge conversions that have been worked on by the youth involved in that program. And I was delighted that they won the organisational award, and also delighted for Stefan Ulinov, whom you would all know as an Adelaide Central Market stalwart, who essentially invented organic food in the market. So if you haven't seen him, please congratulate him. Australia Day was a busy day with a 7 a.m. smoking ceremony and speeches in the park, followed by an absolutely extraordinary ceremony and parade in the evening. That Australia Day Multicultural Festival was probably the biggest I've attended, and I know that those of you who were there enjoyed it also. The city has come alive, with the TDU has begun, and we're on the verge of our festival program. So I hope that we can all enjoy some of those events, and I look forward to seeing you at them in the future. Thank you. Noting my report, moved by Councillor Ho, seconded by DLM. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, members. 13.1, I'd like you to note the council members' activities and the summary of attendance and the reports of meetings. I ask someone to move those three items on block. Councillor Stephen, seconded by Councillor Noon. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. And now move on to motions on notice. 14.1, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I take the motion as read and I seek a seconder.
Seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and thank you to my seconder. So this motion seeks to establish a new category for a subsidy under the existing Sustainability Incentive Scheme, addressing the current lack of support for residents and businesses to acquire and integrate e-bikes and cargo bikes into their lives or operations. Currently, 1 in 3 households in our city already do not own a car, and many households who do own a car struggle to appropriately park it, or let alone their second or third car. Cars have their place, but it is clear that we need to offer alternatives as well. E-bikes and cargo bikes have demonstrated increasing popularity in Australia as an alternative to buying a second car for many families who need to be able to carry large items, groceries, or even children regularly. E-bikes help people cycle more regularly and further with much less effort. International studies, including in the US, demonstrate that half of e-bike journeys directly replace a car journey, and people with e-bikes ride twice as often compared to people on a push bike. Imagine our city with more residents and businesses using e-bikes and cargo bikes to move silently, sustainably and swiftly along our streets. EcoCaddy is a business that has demonstrated over many years that various types of e-bike can be used to provide all manner of business services, including transporting large amounts of cargo directly to and from businesses. A subsidy within our existing scheme allows an equitable access to these vehicles. It goes right back to ratepayers. If you pay rates, do business or live in the city, you're paying for our roads. This subsidy would allow everyone who pays for our streets fair access to them without putting more cars onto them. Ultimately, this is an incentive that the community needs. While e-bikes and cargo bikes are significantly cheaper than a car, it is still a significant expense for most people. My own e-bike, which I purchased at the end of last year, was still a couple of $1,000s, but seeing it on sale, sparing myself a few $100s, was enough to help me make my decision and push me across the line. That's a few $100s that goes back into my pocket to help cover the on average $8 per year that it costs to operate or power an e-bike. This is an incentive that makes sense for our city's livability and sustainability, and I commend it to the Chamber.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ho.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, let me ask a question. So basically, the motion is saying that the incentives given to the residents and the business. I assume that those residents and business are in our city, in the CBD, right? That's my understanding.
To be in the city. Can I seek clarification? Was that the understanding of the administration? Yes.
And the other question here is, what are the major differences between an e-bike and an e-scooter? Because my concerns here is, because we have received many complaints from the residents about e-scooters get on the footpaths, and they do not have a clear regulations in terms of how to use the e-scooters. And the e-scooters now, apparently, you are unable to have insurance cover on it, whereas e-bikes, I see e-bikes in Chinatown almost every day. There are numerous of people using it for food delivery. And besides that, you can actually buy it in Good Guys. Some people actually buy it from overseas. And some people riding it with the helmets, everything doing all right. But the concern here is they can still get on the footpaths with high speed, and there's still no regulations about how people should properly use e-bikes. I actually like the idea of, don't get me wrong, if somehow that one day we are able to get buy an e-bike and travel it, like say, on road with reasonable insurance cover on it and with reasonable regulations to provide the guidelines, I'm happy. I will use one of it myself. But at this point of time, I do have concerns that if, on one hand, without knowing if e-bikes will, just like e-scooters, create so much concerns in the community, and then we start to give the incentive for people to purchase e-bikes without knowing whether or not we will receive the same complaint from e-scooters as well. So I urge members to think about this. I do not like to reject this motion. All right, I like the idea. I just share my concerns. Thank you.
Can I thank you? I take that as speaking to the motion and a couple of questions at the same time, if you don't mind. Can I just have some clarification about the regulations for e-bikes? I'm just not sure myself. Will they all be on the footpath? Can I ask?
Mr. Aridis.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. It's probably important to differentiate that a bike is a bike, whether it's a manual bike or an e-bike, and does have regulation under the Road Traffic Act. There is allowance for an e-bike in the same way a manually powered bike to be ridden either on road or on footpath, so it's distinctly different in framework at the moment to the issue of e-scooters, which, as Council is aware, has an entirely separate process that's currently being undertaken in terms of its regulation and its use, whether it's a private provider or personal acquisition of an e-scooter. And we've taken this motion to purely address e-bikes as reference and have not seen a legislative barrier, but we'll research that as part of the implementation of this, should Council be minded to approve it.
Thank you. I think Councillor Couros. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Siebentritt after you.
Oh,
sorry.
I just have a
Councillor
question.
Couros, I apologise.
I'm all for this motion. I want to get an e-bike myself, no problem. But Councillor Ho just has raised that question. We already get a lot of complaints about the e-scooters. So to what speed? I haven't looked into an e-bike yet, so I'm not familiar to all the speed levels it can go to. To what speed it can go to? What are we talking about here? Because we've already got issues with the e-scooters. Are we going to be creating more issues with e-bikes without thinking about the safety implications? I'm just throwing it out there.
I'll take that as a question of the acting CEO.
Through the Lord Mayor, Mr. Herodes, is that a matter you need to take on notice? We've already committed to bring back some guidelines as to how this incentive scheme might work, with some accompanying advice regarding the regulatory environment, so it would be a fully informed decision by Council.
Remind members that the motion is to direct administration to develop the parameters, and it would have to include the road rules, the regulations and the items that have been asked. So, Councillor Siebentritt.
Lord Mayor, I just wanted to speak in favour of the motion that Councillor Elliott's put forward. I speak in favour because it's ticking a number of boxes that are relevant to us. It's going to address things like traffic congestion, help with action on climate change and also active transport, as well as being chair of the Finance and Governance Committee. It doesn't cost any extra money because we're creating an extra criteria in the Sustainability Incentive Scheme, which is wonderful. I hear Councillor Ho and Councillor Couros' concerns perhaps around some of the safety questions, and if there's a motion comes forward at some point in the future around how we continue to look at that in the city, that would be great. And I highlight that because for those of you who've read, I think, what's an excellent article from Dave Washington today in Daily around the city and embracing micro-mobility. And I think it is really interesting is if we say we want to be an innovative and a bold council, we do need to look at new and big ideas. And this, while it might seem like a small piece in terms of an amendment to the Sustainability Incentive Scheme, it's the exact sort of thing that can encourage a different type of way that we move around our city. So just wanted to reflect on that and congratulate Councillor Elliott on the motion.
So I think that we, unless anyone has an alternative view, I'll ask Councillor Elliott to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I genuinely appreciate everyone's contributions to this discussion. Sometimes it can be frustrating as someone who's advocating for something to hear criticism, but kind of used to it in the cycling world, to be fair. A couple of nods to the only operating scheme that I'm aware of in Australia, which is the Tasmanian State Government's electric vehicle scheme that covers all types of electric vehicles down from cars to scooters and skateboards. I'm obviously not proposing that we do cars or skateboards or scooters in this instance, it is just bikes. But I think through our framework we'd be able to develop a way of identifying what is an appropriate type of bike, obviously a buck feet style or a butcher's bike style, or even a sit-up style bike, not an e-mountain bike, which is obviously dedicated to recreation, not transport. The Tasmanian model offers 12% as a rebate and offers that in 4 rounds of grant funding per year, so you effectively get your GST back. There are lots of ways that we can approach this, but in terms of the safety concerns, the overwhelming majority of cyclists do not want to be on the footpath in the first place. And I think that raises a broader question of why aren't we doing anything to make sure they actually have safe infrastructure for them to ride in the first place. They shouldn't be on the footpaths, they don't want to be on the footpaths, so we have a broader agenda to get on with making sure that our streets are safe for them as well. I think that also raises a broader discussion about the increasing speed, weight and size of the motor vehicles that we're experiencing in the City of Adelaide, which dominate our public space. I think on average it's about 85% of our street space is consumed by just cars, and those cars are getting bigger and heavier. Even EVs, they're getting heavier because of the batteries. That causes more damage to someone when you hit them on a bike or a scooter or on foot at the same speed compared to a conventional internal combustion car. So there are a lot of safety concerns that do come out of this in a broader sense, but e-bikes are a fantastically safe way for people to get around. We've seen a huge amount of uptake with them amongst especially older Australians and especially families riding with their children. People are using these vehicles because they feel safe on them, because they feel nimble, they feel powerful, and they can feel that they can move and carry what they need to do in a safe and efficient way. So I do appreciate everyone's contributions and feedback, and I'm pleased to hear such resounding support in the chamber. Thank you very much.
We just become disconnected, but I'll put the motion as printed. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Minister. Can I ask Councillor Elliott again to support the report after this? Councillor Elliott? Oh, it's me. Your motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Again, I take the motion as read and I seek a seconder.
Seconded by Councillor Noon.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So World Car Free Day is an initiative of the United Nations Environment Programme which highlights the effects of air pollution in cities and promoting safer streets for walking, cycling and socialising. It is also an important opportunity for cities to demonstrate how public places can look, feel and function when you open the streets to people, dining and fun instead of congestion and pollution. It might seem hard to imagine for a city like Adelaide to have car-free spaces, but we do it all the time. We have permanent car-free spaces like Rundle Mall, Festival Plaza, the Central Markets, Lee Street, Peel Street, which dedicate huge amounts of space to people, and people flock to them because it is lively, safe and social. In fact, these are exactly the places that people flock to the city for in the first place. Each year we open Rundle Street, Vaughan Place, Ebenezer Place to performances and dining during Fringe, and you'll be hard-pressed to find someone walking down Rundle Street who bemoans the lack of cars there. This motion asks that we actively promote the opportunities from allowing people and businesses to use our streets in ways that invite people in, not force them to the narrow margins at the sides. It is an opportunity to create deliberate spaces within our city that are open and vibrant. Cities across the world use this day differently, creating markets, street parties, running races, community picnics, and we have seen cities like Barcelona and Paris leaning into developing more permanent spaces that prioritise these activities because they attract visitors and promote urban livability. As a capital city that attracts local, interstate and international visitors and that wants to attract new residents and businesses, we have an obligation to show some leadership in making our city a place that prioritises people.
I don't know if your seconder wishes to contribute to this, but unless there's an alternate view, Councillor Kouros.
I don't have an alternate view, but I have a view. I am in agreement with providing a day in which we could, reflect on other modes of transport rather than cars. But as Councillor Elliott said, cars have their place, but we need to provide alternatives, in which we're doing in aspects in other motions like we did previously. This is messaging, this is leadership, this is getting our community to think outside the square and helping support different alternatives or different way of thinking or different modes of transport or different ways that they can come into the city. All for it. I trust administration will do a great job in being able to deliver this. It was the same, to me, it's probably going to make Councillor Elliott balk, but it's the same as previous councillor last term, Jesse, Kira, who wanted to have a car, what did he call it? Driver's month. But with administration support, they brought forward a Play and Go, which was a great initiative in which we utilised our U-Park. We do own the U-Park, though we have ways in which the U-Park supports the community, and kudos to administration for pulling that out of the hat and delivering something that the community can understand or be palatable with them. Yes, it did get ripped apart in the media, but the whole logic of what he was trying to deliver during a COVID time where people were mainly using their cars, and people are still using their cars, and that's what this is great, and what this motion, thank you Councillor Elliott for bringing through, is that we need to get people out of their habits, and this is the habit that we created through COVID, but people wanting to use their cars only and not looking at other modes of transport. So I commend Councillor Elliott for bringing this through, and I look forward to administration with all their smarts to bringing forward events that can highlight different modes of transport.
So thank you, Councillor Giles.
I'd like to add my support for this motion because I just want us to reflect on what's possible when you look at this idea. And because it's not just about alternative modes of transport, it's actually also about people reclaiming spaces and and meeting each other and being in a city where there aren't cars for periods of time. And I think the really great global examples of that, Mexico City has the centre of their city as being car-free. Palermo on Sundays has their main drag in Sicily, has their main drag opened with no cars on a Sunday, and even the centre of Rome has no cars on a Sunday, so people can walk and talk and that people can sit outside and eat in places that were a road where a car was on it and they couldn't have access to it. So I'd love the administration to come back with some ideas that really help us to create alternative places for people that currently are dominated by vehicles.
Councillor.
No, not speaking against Lord Mayor. I am speaking in support of this. Happy to add my voice to the support, but I just want us to, I guess particularly administration, to keep in mind any budget implications, be it from loss of revenue from U-Park or on-street parking, for us to keep that in mind. I've got no issues with these sorts of initiatives. There is just one more thing that I would like to highlight, Lord Mayor, and that is that I read with interest that there is an article on the InDaily website that talks about the state government eyeing a new transport plan for car-dependent northern suburbs. Now, if we are going to be bold and look at initiatives like this, I think it will be worthwhile for us to have these sorts of conversations with state government as well. So I commend this motion. If we are looking at initiatives like this in the future, I would like us to have the state government at the table. I'm not sure how they can contribute to something like this or other initiatives, but I don't think it's worthwhile for us to go at it alone when we've got state government looking at transport plans for areas that are car dependent.
Thank you. Summing up, Councillor.
Yes, Lord Mayor, thank you. I'll be very brief. Again, I appreciate all the feedback very genuinely. I also very much appreciate the advice of administration in this, and I agree that it is a good idea to explore potentially combining whatever we might do around World Car Free Day with existing days of note around that time being Ride to Work Day. Noting that last year we had a fantastic suite of opportunities for people to be supported and encouraged into riding within, to, between, across, upside down and diagonally through the city with a series of free pop-up bicycle tune-up workshops, one of which is occurring tomorrow down in the Far East End. So there are opportunities to collaborate and actually pull this together. The opportunity, again, noted in the motion, it talks about council, our subsidiaries, our community partners, making sure that this is the best possible suite of events or event that we could deliver, and not necessarily be taking a massive hit to our coffers. Conversely, I'm glad Drivers' Month did come up. It was seated within a particular frame of thinking at the time, and I appreciate that. Public transport patronage plummeted. It bottomed out during that time. People were in their cars. However, the administration report following Drivers' Month indicated that it cost in the order of $100,000 in order to provide those giveaways of parking and those promotions, and it generated no meaningful effect for city visitation at all. So it demonstrates that this is now a time that we do need to try something different. We need to look at those alternatives and actively promote them. And this is one of those things that can bring to the front of people's minds those alternatives and actively promote them and demonstrate that this is a city that makes space for people and events. We are known as a festival state. We put on some of the biggest and best parties in the country and probably even the Southern Hemisphere. And we need to make sure that those festivals, those parties, those events actually have viable spaces to operate, and those businesses and those residents are brought along for the ride in a safe and livable city as well.
Thank you. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. Can we move on to 14.3, Deputy Lord Mayor?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I seek a seconder.
Councillor Kouros.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I think this started almost a year ago, probably at least 8 or 9 months ago. Councillor Kouros and I and several other councillors were at the Grote Street Business Precinct. I think it was the AGM, and we were made aware of many different concerns that the locals had, and one that I took under my particular wing as a existing fan, and we kind of joke about this a little bit, my existing fan of Wombat and zebra crossing, I was made aware that the dangers and difficulties of crossing the road in and around the IGA on Franklin Street. So this is quite a busy road, and there's no lights in that intersection, so you quite literally, pedestrians have to wait until there's a gap in the traffic, and at some points of the day that is almost impossible. It is the hardest leg, so to speak, to walk if you're walking north-south in that part of the city. That road is the hardest leg to cross if you're outside of the main roads. I believed the the constituents, I believe the business owners and the residents. But shortly thereafter, I started going swimming in Pridham Hall, the gymnasium swimming centre, and that's when I saw firsthand quite how bad it was. So I've been liaising with our administration behind the scenes. This has been informally been going on for some time now. I know Tom and his team has done some initial investigations, and so this is just the next step of formalising the investigation, the research into whether or not this should be possible. And I'll just say final as well, all I'm asking for is a report. I'm not asking, give me the money right now or anything like that. Let's have a look. Let's investigate if it's doable. Let's see the costs associated, and if it is doable, if it is something that will significantly increase the safety of pedestrians in the area, which I believe it will, then obviously I'll move forward in the future to try and get it into the budget. But for now, just an investigation and a report. Thank you.
Only to say that Deputy Lord Mayor is correct to say that there are concerns for the residents and the businesses in the area and in the precinct there. I'm only taking on board what they're asking, and a report is a good place to start, and just to understand the concerns that they have and the way that we can implement some safety measures in and around that area. So I do appreciate Deputy Lord Mayor bringing this through, and I look forward to the report.
Well, I am very closely a resident. In actual fact, one of the residents in my neighbouring building, he asked me for a walk around and to identify where all the hazards were, including obviously that street corner. And I got Mark Gooch, who's actually in the chamber along with us for the walk around. And we actually, through that process, we identified quite a few areas of improvement which have already been implemented. So well done, Mr. Gooch. And this was the only one where there was a question mark on it. And there's legislation and policy restrictions around this as well. So I am absolutely aware that this was only a few months ago, that there is work being done on this to identify an area to make that whole area a lot safer. But I have to say that through that walk around, we did actually identify a lot more car parks that could be that were identified to turn into car parks to make it safer for the academy, the school. I think it's a dance academy across the road, and but there is that issue around Elizabeth Street into Franklin Street, which is a bit of a nightmare, but you don't want what's happened in Perry Street with a zebra crossing that's going to hold up the traffic as well along that very busy road in the morning that is really hard to get out of at the moment. So there is issues, and the administration are identifying what they are, and they're doing the best to come up with a solution, as they have with some of the other areas in that area.
I think we're in furious agreement. Can I close the debate, Deputy Lord Mayor?
On Councillor's point, can I ask a question of administration, just for clarification? Through you, Chair, is it, because there is some understanding, the initial conversation that was put back to me is that we can't have a zebra or wombat crossing within 20 metres of the intersection. Is it the administration's reading of my motion that we are aware of that and we are looking 20 metres either side, so to speak, and therefore we're not going to get a report back saying no, it can't be done within 20 metres?
I'm sorry, I'm not entirely sure what the question is. Can you just say we're not aware?
Tom will know what my question is, sorry, and I'll try and say
Mr.
it more clearly.
McCready.
I hope.
I think we do need to understand what the question is.
Sorry, so my question is, does the administration read from my motion that we'll be looking further than 20 metres either side of the intersection where I know it is legal to put a zebra or wombat crossing?
I think they will try to comply with the motion and the spirit of it. I don't think that they will limit it to one spot. Thank you. All those in favour? All those against, that's carried. Thank you. Did you? Can I just take that vote again? All those in favour, hands up, and all against. Thank you, members. That's carried unanimously. We'll move on to motions without notice. If there are none, we'll move on to the next item, which is questions without notice. So on notice, sorry. Questions without notice. None. We'll move on. Now we're going to move on to the confidential items on the agenda. There are several items, and for clarity of the minutes, I'm going to take the exclusion decisions separately so that there's clarity with the public about what we're going to debate. The matters we're going to discuss will be the delegation of award of contract, which is to exclude for 19.1. So could I ask someone to move that exclusion by Councillor Siebentrit, seconded by Councillor Giles. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item is to select the members of the Chief Executive Selection Panel. That's 19.2. Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Siebentrit. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next exclusion is to nominate a council-appointed member to Caterpillar. Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. The next, 19.4, the appointment of an independent audit and risk committee member. Moved by Councillor Abrahimzadeh, seconded by Councillor Noon. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. And the last item will be the appointment of an acting CEO until the final appointment of a permanent CEO is made. 19.5, moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Noon. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you, that's carried. Now, can we clear the gallery of non-staff members? Thank you. If I could